it was started off as a newsletter. So the charity GMFA wanted a way to find a way to kind of connect and tell the news of what was going on in the charity to the community. So they developed this newsletter that was in very much the style of GMFA, and they called it Fuck Sheet, which was F star star star, 4 stars, 3 stars, sheet. And it was essentially just kind of like, hey, this is GMFA, this is what's happening in our charity, this is all the stuff you need to know about what's going on in the community. Really great stuff. And when you look at the old issues, the issue 1, 2, 3, all the way to like 10, 11, 12, it really showed you what was going on in the community at that time and how the community was responding to HIV and AIDS at the time. It featured a lot of volunteers and what volunteers were doing on the ground, and a great way to connect with the community, to be able to kind of say, this is our charity, this is what we're doing, this is how you can get involved.
So the impulse for Fuck Sheet or Fact Sheet, because it was always a little pun, a little bit of fun, was communicating with volunteers, making them feel involved in an organisation. There was so much going on, it was a way of rounding all that up. And the volunteers over time developed it into, or tried to develop into, something that would inform gay men about what was going on with HIV research, with treatments, with trying to distill quite difficult stuff into something that anyone could read and understand, and then think about and hopefully design some intervention based on what they learned. We mailed it out to volunteers at first. The mailing list grew quite large, to libraries, to other HIV organisations. Maybe 10 a year, I think we were contracted to do in the end when it became funded.
What happened with FS was, about in 2002, the need for a newsletter kind of diminished as the internet kind of came in, and there was people who were getting more newsletter stuff through email, so the idea of a physical leaflet was not absolutely needed. It was the chief executive at the time and Carrie James, who used to work in the organisation. They decided to change FS, or Fuck Sheet, into FS magazine. So it was abbreviated down into those abbreviations that we love in this charity. And it became a proper magazine, a proper health magazine. It offered up-to-date information on HIV and sexual health, how to wear a condom, what lube to be using. It did it in a very easy way, an easy way to understand how HIV and sexual health worked in those days. And yes, it still did all the stuff that a newsletter did, and it was a great way to kind of say, this is what's going on in the charity. But it was a glossy magazine. It was 32 pages, and it went right throughout the whole country. So, we were looking at, I know when I joined, 50,000 copies were being sent to bars and clubs and pubs and LGBT centres throughout the whole of England. It felt like this magazine is a good thing that people like to see, and it's not something that I would personally pick up myself and read. I was seeing the same type of articles over and over again. I was seeing the same kind of images being used over and over again, and it just became a chore. Even though I wasn't the editor, it just became a chore. And I could see its potential, but I didn't really see how I was going to be able to influence that change in the magazine. But the editor moved on, and an opportunity arose for me to kind of take over. And it was in 2011, so about a year and a bit after I joined the organisation, that I was given the opportunity to become editor for FS and an upgrade to online communications manager. The biggest thing that I wanted to do was I wanted FS to be the news. I didn't want it to tell the news. I wanted to get people excited for picking up the magazine. If I'm going to be an editor for this magazine, it should be something that I'm excited to pick up. I think when it comes to the kind of the lighter heart side of what we created during that time, Bareback Britain, fantastic. It was great to put that together, because we obviously surveyed the community and we got some great numbers and we got great people to talk about their sex lives, and it was about kind of understanding how people are actually having sex, whether they're having protected sex or unprotected sex, and based on what, at the time, what unprotected sex meant. And we called it Bareback Britain. We got a great model, Scott Hunter, who was a fantastic, it was a fantastic day to shoot that. It means I think some of the great days of FS were actually the photo shoots, because it gave us, I mean, it was fun to do. It was like, if you had told this 15-year-old boy from Ireland that he's going to be standing in a room with a photographer and porn stars taking photographs for a magazine cover, he would have laughed your ass off. It's a bit surreal now thinking about it. It was really fun. And that issue was really, really fun. It was fun to put together. I mean, there's some other issues that have been great as well. The sex in the sauna issue. We had another model that came all the way down from Manchester to do that one. We did that in a sauna with some great, wonderful shots. Even if the articles had flopped, even if the magazine had flopped, we had great images that were fantastic, that nobody else was putting out. And this is why FS was so good, because it was fresh. It was fresh, it was unique in the way of its approach. It was a way, nobody was doing sexual health like FS was doing at that time, to be able to connect a story with the community using imagery and words that reflected how the society was going on in our communities, but without making people feel bad. That's what actually was really key to FS. It's like, yeah, listen, we've got problems here, but we can overcome these. We can, if you just make some sort of change in your life, if you can do something, if you're aware of what you're doing, then it can make a difference to you and our community. I think when it comes to some of the issues, those issues that kind of came out in about 2014, I'd say 2013, 14, 15, were absolutely groundbreaking. I mean, we did some issues that went absolutely global. The first one I could think of straight away is the racism issue. When we published the racism issue, it was something that was based off actually the porn issue. It was people fetishizing minorities, which led me to kind of think, how can we develop an issue based on this? So we interviewed people from minority backgrounds, and we created an issue called sexual racism. When we put that out into the scene, the day after, I got phone calls. I got people who called from within black communities, from outside black communities, saying that we shouldn't be producing this content because it's just giving ammo to homophobes. It's giving them content to attack us with. The fact that I was holding up a mirror to their community and saying, you need to look at your behaviour a little bit, they didn't like it. We also had some people from the black communities who were scared that we were talking about an issue that they weren't ready to talk about yet. So it was ahead of its time. I mean, the idea of putting out a sexual racism issue right now, nobody would blink an eye in the sense of, is it controversial? Because it's not controversial. But at the time it was controversial. But it just made me even kind of see that if we are going to change our behaviour as a community, then we need to stop caring about what people outside our community thinks. We need to shine a light on the issues that affects us, get people to think about their behaviours, because that's how you create effective change.
FS was really, really great and a really good publication of getting information out to gay men, but it didn't always get it right. And I'm reminded of when GMFA were doing work around race and racism on the gay scene in particular. And an issue had come out, and I think a survey had been done by GMFA at the time, and you were printing the results of the survey. And I was really concerned that what was being positioned was that the only concern that black gay men had in this life was around racism on the gay scene, and particularly racism on dating apps. And it didn't take into account our wider needs or the wider issues. I challenged GMFA a couple of times around the race issue and how they were approaching race and presenting it in FS. But what I was really glad to see is that GMFA had moved and evolved to a position where they were actually listening. And I remember somebody calling me up from GMFA and was about to publish FS, and the headline was, "Is the gay scene racist?" Question mark. And I responded, lose the question mark and lose the is and just put in the, and the gay scene is racist, because your survey results are very clearly telling you that it is. So I was really happy to see that that evolution had taken place. And that evolution then meant that GMFA were more open and willing to do work which specifically targeting gay men, black gay men, like me, him, us.
FS went global. Some of the issues were picked up in countries in America, in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Brazil, Japan, France, Germany. I don't think there was ever an intervention in my time in the HIV or in the HIV world where an intervention was being shared in different countries. Our articles were translated into different languages. People asked us to send different copies throughout the world. It was groundbreaking for an intervention on that level to be used on such an international level. We had news sites in the US who would look at our statistics that we found and create multiple of articles of what, based on that, opinion pieces on what we were producing. That's groundbreaking. That's something that, no, if I was to end my career out now and I'd never had any other successes, I'd still look back and look at that and kind of go, wow, absolutely wow. And we did that.
Where FS really worked for me as a man who's living with HIV was a Strip Bare annual issue that used to come out every year. And I used to look out for seeing, like, okay, who's been brave enough to get their kit off? Who do I want to see topless? Who do I not want to see topless? And who's going to do it? And I just loved the fact that it approached gay men living with HIV from a really positive, empowering position, which wasn't being done before. And I think that that's something we're missing now. You know, the visibility of gay men living with HIV is something which is absent from our communications, from our campaigns, unless we look at things like Can't Pass It On. But the notion of us living well, living healthily, doesn't kind of exist anymore. So when FS did Strip Bare, which then led on to the Undetectables work, that was just great stuff. And that was doing exactly what GMFA was so good at doing, which is being a little bit cheeky, taking a few risks, being funny with it, human, but really taking care of people. And I think that's what came across in the Strip Bare stuff.
I think so. FS's role in GMFA started off as a little baby that kind of helped the organisation out to reach people. And then it grew into a toddler that became a bit of a problem child for the organisation from time to time. But something funny happened in the 2010s as the charity kind of lost money and it didn't really have the budgets to be putting out the campaigns that it was doing in the 2000s. FS became pretty much the prime intervention for GMFA. I think what it did was elevate GMFA to something unique. With FS, GMFA was able to reach gay men in a way that no other sexual health organisation could. FS Magazine is the charity's longest running intervention, and I believe it has a legacy as one, if not the most provocative, honest, open and groundbreaking interventions ever created for gay men. I believe everyone involved in this journey should be proud of what we achieved.